I read somewhere that you also were talking about having this balance of having, pet dogs and also having these street dogs. They create balance when you have, street dogs or dogs who are living, freely. It's a good thing you're saying. Can you expand on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. To start with, we are not talking about dogs that have been abandoned. They're
Right,
not in the street because they have been abandoned by somebody. They are
right.
living free since ever. They
Mm-hmm.
are free animals, as well as we have free birds, we have free flies, free mosquitoes. They're not being abandoned by anybody. They're free,
Right.
right? So those
Yes.
dogs are living free because in those cultural contexts, in those environmental contexts, they've been they're born in the street or in the environment, in the
Yeah.
village, and they keep living in that lifestyle.
That's a natural life for them.
Yeah, that's a natural life, so for that, so that's the first important clarification that we need
Right.
to do. Because if we start judging and say, oh, poor creature, she's on the street, we are putting a pitfall to ourselves, right? Because we
Right.
are just putting our uh, sometimes Western mentality or
Right.
preconceived ideas that no animal should be in the street. That's not necessarily the case. There is what we believe things should
Mm-hmm.
be, how we
Mm-hmm.
believe things should be, and then there is nature, and we
Mm-hmm.
need to we need to learn from nature and observe what happens in nature, and then we adjust to it, and we see how we can improve things if we can bring our contribution to it, right? But in
Right.
the case of free ranging dogs, and imagine we are talking about 900 million dogs around the world.
Wow.
900 million dogs is almost 1 billion dogs, right? So 900 million dogs around the world. Out of those 900, approximately 900 millions, 750 millions are free ranging. 150 million approximately are dogs living in a house with people, right? So
Mm.
dogs living as pet companion in a house with people are one fifth, are the minority, are one fifth of free ranging dogs. So we need to learn from those
Mhm.
proportions and
Mhm.
understand that dogs living in the street are free to live in the streets where that's allowed, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
That does that mean, again, for who is listening, take any judgment away. Don't get trapped, oh, poor creature, and this and that. Don't get trapped by those
Human
things. I mean,
emotion.
those emotions. That so does that mean that dogs in the street all live a wonderful lifestyle? Not of course.
Right.
Not of course. There are issues in the street as well as there are issues in the houses.
Mhm.
It's true the other way around. Does that mean a dog living in a human family, does that mean that that's a wonderful lifestyle? Not at all. It may be there is abuse, there is domestic violence, there is improper dog training with dominance and dogs being very frustrated. There is anxiety. There are a lot of issues, self-mutilation, a lot of behavioral issues
Just
that
lack
happen
of
just, yeah,
just lack of education of dog owners themselves,
yeah.
not knowing what to do.
You know, there are a lot of issues, especially in the households,
Hmm.
that do not happen at all for dogs in the street
Right.
because they are less exposed to human proximity, right? They are
Hmm.
less restrained, they're not restrained. So we don't have to reason with those fixed categories, yeah?
Hmm.
Oh, inside is good, outside is bad. Or a dog with a human family is good, a dog without the human family is bad, right? So
Hmm.
of course, who wants, it's free to do it, but if we want to understand about dogs and
Hmm.
how human and dogs interact across time and across geographic areas and across cultural contexts, then we need to be a bit more sharp and smart in reasoning, right? So, as I was saying, dogs living in the street are free because they're always been, right?
Hmm.
It may be also the case that some dogs have been living with the human family and then they ended up in the street anyway. That also is
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah.
It may be that case, for example, in a city. If you go in a city, a normal city, whatever city in Europe, or in Seattle,
Right.
or in New York, and you see a dog around by himself, you're going to suspect that that dog was with somebody, and then it went off leash and it's lost, for example, right?
Right.
So it depends on the context, right?
Hmm.
That said, to some extent, there is the benefit of having the freedom of doing what they want, yeah, and there is the benefit of interacting with other dogs and expressing all the range of communication skills that they have,
Hmm.
which is not necessarily the case when dogs are at a leash with our in our
Right.
house,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
living with humans, right?
Right. Right.
You go at the dog park and you see that dog is pointing at that other dog. They want to meet each other, and already they need to meet from far, pulling at the leash, because the parents of those dogs,
Yeah.
the caretakers of those dogs, the guardians, the human of those dogs, they're not sure if they can get closer than that. So the dogs are already, there is already that
Yes.
interference
Yeah.
with their interaction, and then
Right.
they want to sniff at each other
Yeah.
on the butt, and they are not allowed to do that,
Right.
because
Right.
that's, in some cases, that's not allowed,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then they want to they want to maybe stand or sit or lie, and also the posture they want to use to communicate with other dogs. They want to choose the best posture based on that situation, right?
Right.
But
Right.
sometimes they are not allowed to do that, right?
Yeah.
So if in that sense, dogs living a free ranging lifestyle, they are fortunate. They can express themselves as they want, and that's the reason why there are less conflicts among
Mm.
dogs in the street, dogs living in free ranging, than those dogs at the park, right?
Right.
That are more inclined to fight sometimes because they're
Yeah.
not allowed to communicate as they
Right.
want, or because there is the interference of people, or whatever may be the case, right? And again, I'm not saying that everybody does that, of
Yeah.
course. It happens. It happens because sometimes we are distracted. It happens because we are not sure about the certain behavior of dogs. It happens because we have the best intention, but we assume things should be in a way, while in fact they should be in a completely different way, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
so whoever is listening, don't take me wrong, don't feel guilty.
No.
We all can improve. I can improve, Saro can improve, everybody at home can improve. It's an infinite game, that of learning about dogs and
Yeah.
improving our interactions with
I,
them,
I
right?
see. I see. The point that you're bringing home is that we can learn from these street dogs and hopefully try to mimic or bring that information a little bit to our homes and uh, share that with our own dogs, and maybe not be too controlling about our dogs' lives. Give them some freedom.
Yeah, it's finding again a new balance. Let's put it this way. There is
Mhm.
always a new balance that is
Right.
possible to establish with
Yeah.
our companions, right? With our doggy companions, and what we can learn from free-ranging dogs as well as from wolves. But it's relevant in that sense, right? So we can learn from the behavior of free-ranging dogs, that they are willing to communicate, to meet each other, to avoid conflict, and we can bring that knowledge into our homes, right? And refine our sense of listening, our sense of observation, because sometimes we assume a lot about what the dog wants, what the dogs prefer, right? We
Mhm.
assume a lot, right? Well, in fact, we need to being more in a observation point of view, observation spots, right? you wait a little bit longer. Let the dog go there. Let's see what the dog does. What's being that in the backyard, being that the little road behind our home, or being that the
Mhm.
dog park. Don't call continually the dog. Hey, come here, come here. Don't call it continually. Be a bit less active, and more observant, more observe more, right? Refine your sense of listening, and your sense of observation, and don't do that much as maybe sometimes you are inclined to do, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah.
that's the case, if you already found a good balance, that's fantastic. If the relationship with your dog is wonderful, fantastic, nothing to change for now, because anyway things change, and we are in transformation. Dogs are in transformation, so there is always a new balance to find, maybe a little bit ahead and a little bit
Mhm.
further on the road. But
Right.
um, so yes, from free ranging dogs we can learn a lot as dog parents, dog caretakers, dog guardians. We can learn a lot by observing their behavior, and not just understanding more of the behavior of dogs, but being self-reflective on our own behavior, right? And
Mhm.
understanding that we can achieve a lot more by doing a lot less. Sometimes it's not always
Mhm.
the case,
Yes.
but it's often the case, especially in Western countries, Europe, US, where we are inclined to talk a lot, to do a
Mm.
lot, and to have control of many things,
Yes.
right? Yeah, dogs are closer to nature. Dogs are the opportunity for us to reconnect to nature also, right?
Right.
If we leave them space, if we leave them with the opportunity of expressing themselves more naturally, that type of expression, that type of behavior, that frequency will be contagious, and
Mm.
will be contagious to us, right?
Mm.
We will also get into that frequency where we are calmer, and
Mhm.
where when we breathe deeper. We need to do
Yes.
less to achieve more. We can do less to achieve more. And
Yeah.
that becomes a mindful interaction and in a relationship with the dog, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's the reason why dogs are so strongly employed in clinical contexts, right? With the autism, with the elder people, with people after
Service dog.
with a service dog, a
Mm.
post-traumatic stress disorder,
Mhm.
and all
Yeah.
of those things, right? Dogs are wonderful because they adjust immediately to a situation. They understand what's needed if we allow them to do it, and then they create a frequency on which we can tap. We can
Mhm.
tap into that frequency, and then all of a sudden you feel better. And that's why they can get where, in some cases, in some clinical contexts, doctors cannot get, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
just um, and other types of professionals cannot get, right? Unless there is the help of a dog. I mean,
Yes.
that may bring a lot into the picture, right? To the picture.
Right.
So, and also again about learning from free ranging dogs, professionals can learn a lot, right? Because by observing those dogs and observing observing the interactions of those dogs among each other, dogs with dogs and dogs with
Mm.
people, right? They can learn a lot about human-dog relationship, and then
Yeah.
they can get some new perspectives, and then they can apply that with their clients where they when they go to work, right? And
Well, I learned a lot from simply, observing your studies, that your research that you did. Actually, I took a lot from that as a professional myself, and I even made videos about it, talked about it, and all that. Just the fact that we circle back, just calm down, relax, chill.
yeah,
Yeah,
chill, observe,
yeah,
do something if it's needed, advise, leave the space for things to manifest, to express themselves, right? And for things to unfold, right? The dog will feel more at ease with that, provided that the situation allows that. If you are in the middle of a high road, of course,
right.
it's a different context,
Yeah,
right? I'm
yeah,
not saying that applies to every context, right?
right, right.
Provided that there are the conditions to do that, right?
Yeah,
Then yeah, try to find that frequency, and things may go way better within a
yes.
certain relationship, right?
Marco, lastly, I want to ask you, what are you doing at the moment? What are you observing now? What are you doing? Any research, if you are doing?
Sure.
And where can people learn more about you?
Well, okay. Actually, I am refining my academy in this period because I had sometimes to work online. Actually, I'm working online in two ways, both refining my academy. So I'm putting on some materials where people, if people are curious, can go and check. There is actually a program, a learning program on free engine dogs. I believe still the only one available online on free
Right,
engine dogs, and another one on wolves, and there are other programs. So if they are curious and want to learn more, they can go there and check, either by checking my website, marcoadda.com, to the learning page. They will find all those programs. So I'm working a lot on refining the academy and the materials on the academy. And on the other hand, I'm preparing for two conferences I will participate. One is in the US, upcoming on aggression, but in that case, I will participate with some video abstract that are offered to the Congress, to the conference. And then I have another conference early November, on which I'm also on the board of that conference. It's an anthrozoology conference in anthrozoology,
mhm,
and I am preparing a paper to propose there on this specific aspect of dog-human interaction and the use of body and weight within the communication of that interaction,
mhm.
right?
Oh,
So
wow.
how we use the body in the communication with interaction, but not big movements, not but how we breathe within that communication, how we put our weight, how we see it, how we are breathing in that moment, how we are using the shoulders, for example. Dogs are very perceptive in that
Right,
sense, right?
yes.
They're very sensitive in that sense, right? So I
Mm-hmm,
felt there was the need to dive a little bit more into that aspect, and of course, with some attention to the fact that we cannot be dominant towards dogs, right? So
right,
the way
right.
we touch dog, like for
Yeah,
example,
I see.
sometimes in some cases you may not want to put the hand of a dog head, right? Because a dog may, if it's a dog that you know very well, no problems. As well as you would touch the face of a friend, no problem, you can do
Mm-hmm,
it, right? Otherwise, a dog may, for example, may accept that, but if you look carefully, some dogs do a little bit like that, like squeeze the
mm-hmm.
shoulders
Yeah,
and allow you that to
right,
do that, but they're not
Pro-
completely accept. They're not
right,
completely happy about that, right?
yeah,
Well, in fact, if you touch under the cheek, for example, they're more
more
inclined
open.
to come up with the body
Mm,
and happy with that, right? So if we can help people to become more sensitive to look at those details, and while interacting with their dogs and other
yeah,
dogs,
yeah.
that may improve a lot the relationship of people and dog,
Wow.
in many ways, right?
Can't wait
Uh,
to read that and learn more about that. That sounds very interesting. I'm uh, very, always tell people that dogs in our lives, they're always watching us, they're observing us. Where
yeah.
we are doing all this stuff, they're observing us. That's all they do. They just read us and observe us.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
all day long.
They see us with their nose.
Yeah,
We are
yes,
lying. They are in another room, and we
yeah,
are in this other room. We
yeah,
are still
yeah,
doing something in the on the desk. They visualize. They see that image, right?
exactly.
Then we are feeling tired, and we are thinking, okay, now I lie a moment down on the carpet or on bed, right? We are feeling tired. They see that. I believe
Mhm.
that they see
Yeah,
that we start to have some proofs of that, right?
yes, yes.
We now know that dogs, by their sense of nose, by their nose, they can create
See,
a
vision.
visual map
Yes.
of what
Wow.
they have around.
Yeah.
They draw with their nose. They have a visualization
Right,
of
right.
what they have around, right? So
Yes.
they basically can see by their sense of
Wow.
smell, of scent, right? By their nose, by the
Yeah.
vomeronasal organ, right? They can catch a lot, right?
Yeah.
So they understand. In most cases, they understand way more of what they have around than we believe, right?
Mm.
So, and
They
that
know
again,
they
yeah,
know humans better than humans know dogs.
yeah. Well, undoubtedly, undoubtedly.
Yes.
That's why they have been around for 15,000 years, right? And
Right,
that's
right.
why they're still around, and that's why it's the most thriving species, one of the most thriving mammals around the planet.
Wow.
You can imagine there is one dog in this planet. There is one dog for every 8 people.
Mm-hmm.
Those are huge numbers,
Right,
right?
right,
There
right.
are there is no other species that is not a mammal species. Of course, if we go into
Yeah, yeah,
insects
yeah,
and
yeah.
other stuff, it's
Right.
another realms, but it's it. That's why those animals, smart as they are, and evolutionarily intelligent as they are, and they have been able to stay around for
Of course.
for for so long,
Yeah.
and they are sleeping in our bed
Yes.
now.
Oh,
How
thank
smart!
yes. Thank you so much, Marco, for coming to the show and giving
Uh,
us all this information.